Everyone's a faceless man. Hi, I'm LJ, a nitpicking nerd who loves to theorize about ice and fire. Feel free to argue with me in the comments. Hi, LJ here, and I am back with another Faceless Man video because that is all I do. Not only do I have this Faceless Man video, but I have like 2 or 3 others cooking because I have learned so much about the Faceless Men. First, I want to go over all of the videos that I've done in the last couple weeks. The first one was that the Faceless Men were at the Tower of Joy. I stand by that. I gave great logical evidence and factual evidence from the books. So you should go and watch that if you haven't. The second one I kind of botched. I called it the origins of the Faceless Men, but it wasn't really it wasn't like the book origin. I think we've been misinterpreting it the entire time. And so I went with my own theory, but like everybody knows the origins. No one's going to click on that. Ignore that video. Number 3 is why Jack and Hagar was in the black cells. Number 4 is I redid kind of number 2, and it's called the true origins of the Faceless Men. And I 100% stand by that I have found out what the real origins are because we have been misinterpreting it, and I gave plenty of evidence regarding that. I'm not just saying things off of feels and vibes, although those feels and vibes are there. The video I did is packed with logic and evidence. And then right now I'm doing a video called Everyone is a Faceless Man because I have it in my head that we don't know who all the faceless men are, that there are people in the story that we've encountered that are faceless men, and I think I have a few in mind I'd like to talk about. This specific video speaks of one. Okay, so the evidence that I present is always going to be it's going to fall into 2 buckets. The first is logical evidence. C happened because A and B happened. So that is logical evidence to me. The second is breadcrumb evidence where George might sprinkle a clue somewhere. And just to give you a hint of the origins of Faceless Man, a breadcrumb clue would have been how Jorah Mormont told Daenerys that Lorath was economically insignificant. If you watch the video, you'll figure out why that's a breadcrumb. So there's that. Also, as I do every time, I'm going to thank the people that came before me, and these people are the 3 that I listened to when I first started listening to theories. First being Preston Jacobs. He had amazing theories. Second being Order of the Green Hand. His theories were not always accurate, but I honestly think that he injected some really good thoughts into the community. Third was Gemma from Order of the Citadel. I can't even remember her theories, but she was awesome, and her videos are gone, so I can't even peruse them. So every other video I've made, I've highlighted the fact that I haven't looked at many fan theories for years. And it really had been years that I hadn't really listened to them. However, I actually went and I re-listened to Preston Jacobs' Faceless Men. There's 5 videos. I re-listened to his Faceless Men videos for this because, number 1, I respect him highly. Number 2, I just kind of needed a brush up. I am not rereading 5 books and The World of Ice and Fire and all that for these videos. I'm just skimming, highlighting, looking up a search of Ice and Fire, and I went to Preston Jacobs' videos to help me with this because he connects things so well, and I never really took anything from them when I was doing this video, but it really made me see how I didn't look at Bravos the way I should have looked at it previously. He's really good at connecting things I would have never connected. So moving on, I'm going to get into this video now. There are hidden faceless men throughout A Song of Ice and Fire. When I say there are faceless men throughout all of Westeros, I mean an actual person that is a faceless man, or I could mean a faceless man is wearing the husk of a person that we know. And these 2 things can be different because a person that is a faceless man may not be a face-wearing individual. Also, I want to point out that Syrio told Arya Stark in A Game of Thrones, Arya 4, that keen eyes can spot glamours. And that is important to what I'm about to get into. As I stated earlier, I did a video regarding the true origins of the Faceless Men, and I say true origins because we have been misinterpreting it this entire time, and there's a mountain of evidence that I've presented showing you the true origins. I forgot one very big piece of evidence, and I'm actually going to present it to you right now. I don't care if I'm spoiling this because a lot of you may never even watch that video. It is a good video, not high quality. I don't ever present that, but it is a good video in terms of evidence and breadcrumbs, and I'm like 99% sure I'm correct on that. Anyway, so the evidence that I forgot to present is I mentioned in it about how both the Faceless Man have a coin and Lorith and the Boshi have a coin, and like there's just not a ton of places where it has coins for, talked about and shown, and so that was one of the pieces of evidence. But I never showed you the coins, and I should have. Why? Because the Faceless Man coin, one side of it, the Faceless Man coin is a Boshi priest. It's like literally a Boshi priest. So I'm going to put this on the screen. It's probably already up there. And I'm going to let you marinate in that. So I'm really excited that, I feel very clever. And I wish I would have added this to the last video, but I'm too lazy to figure out if I can do that. So that is the new evidence. As I stated earlier, I've started listening to videos again, and I started by listening to Preston Jacobs' Faceless Man series. There's about 5 videos, not very long. One thing that he talked about was whether or not Rorge and Biter were faceless men, and after that video, years ago when I watched it, I had always assumed that they were, and I'm going to work off that assumption right now. So he spent a lot of time detailing Jaqen H'ghar, Rorge, and Biter, and wondering why people would want to be associated with them. For example, the Lannisters put them in their colors and associated with them, which, if you look at how Biter is described, you're like, why would he do that? Why would, these men want to be associated with them? It's one thing to, hire people on the down low, but, it's a whole other to put them in your arms colors and stuff. And I had a thought. Never seen this thought, but I had a thought. And it's thanks to Preston Jacobs, because he mentioned how Sirio, I can't pronounce his name, he saw through the Sea Lord of Bravos's glamour and saw the cat instead of a beast. Well, what if people with keen eyes can see through the glamours, and maybe Arya is one of the few with keen eyes, and everyone else sees Rorge and Biter as being very normal looking, without missing noses and weird freaking teeth, and Arya is one of the few people that see them for who they are. That would also have to include Brienne having keen eyes because she fought Biter, and that was absolutely horrifying. I wish I could go through right now and read every scene that people interact with Rorge and Biter to see if they're interacting with them like they look normal, or if they're interacting with people that seem like they're missing noses and their face is poxed. I don't know if it's pox. Biter's just not looking too healthy. So I just wanted to put that out there, that maybe Arya is seeing Rorge and Biter a different way than everyone else around them because they are so grotesque, and yet people are associating with them. So that is my first thought, and it pertains to this video because everyone's a faceless man, and I'm about to detail who I think is a faceless man and why, and we're going to get into that now. Is Littlefinger a faceless man? Okay, so here's the big question. Is Littlefinger a faceless man? I'm going to start by saying the original person in Westeros I thought was a faceless man was actually Ned Stark, even though we were in Ned's head. I kind of thought that maybe we didn't understand all the workings of the faceless men and that they took on their thoughts, and I've since moved on from that theory, but for a while I wanted it to work. Couldn't make Ned Stark work, but Littlefinger, I have found a lot of stuff that says maybe he is either a faceless man or a faceless man adjacent. And what is faceless man adjacent? There are a lot of people that, even though they're not faceless men, they are servants of the many-faced god. There's a brothel in Bravos that seems to be connected with the faceless man, and also Brosco, who Arya Stark stayed with, was a servant of the faceless man, and I don't think he was an actual faceless man. So it's possible that Littlefinger is either a faceless man or a servant of the faceless man. But for this video, I'm going to say he is a faceless man, and I have reasons. One moment. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do, because this is going to be done sloppily, is I'm going to go over the evidence. And then there's some quotes I'm going to go into and some mysteries and all this stuff. Also, I found an amazing theory. I found an amazing theory I've never seen anywhere else. And I've said that before. It may not be true, but oh my goodness, I am like so excited for this theory. And it all came because I was doing the Littlefinger research. So when you look at things through a different lens, you see things in a way that you've never seen them before. And that is, it's just fun. It's really fun. So I'm going to go over the evidence. Okay, so first of all, Littlefinger uses a mockingbird as his personal sigil, which may not seem like a big deal, but it's kind of interesting that he would use that because mockingbirds are known to mimic. And what do faceless men do? They mimic. So that is, I would say that's a pretty big piece of evidence. If I still did that thumbprint things with how strong the evidence is, that would be 5 thumbprints. Also, on his family's coat of arms is the Bravos Titan, the stone Titan. And now I know that could just represent that his family's from Bravos, but I just feel like even though that means that, and they could just be from Bravos and not connected with faceless men, I just feel like it is one of, like, when you put that breadcrumb with the other breadcrumbs, they add up. Also, he had a significant injury as a child, and that injury could have been a mortal wound. Even Kat thought that was a mortal wound, and I'm going to get more into that when I describe where I think the faceless men thing happened, because I think there was an event that led to the faceless man taking over his body or him becoming the servant. I will discuss that later. Also, he is a master of coin, and I'm going to go more into that also, but that is pretty significant because he came from like nothing and he became a master of coin. That is crazy. He did have a complete change. I'm going to go over this later, but he had a complete change of personality at one point. He is described like a cat, and I just kind of feel like the faceless men have some cats going around there. Also, when he's speaking with Elaine, also known as Sansa, he is eating a pomegranate, and pomegranates do represent rebirth. So there's that. His family's sharp rise to power is very distinct. It can be hard to move between the classes in A Song of Ice and Fire or Westeros. It can be really hard to move through the classes, especially since like they're not known for being like big warriors. They're very at least Littlefinger is. He's a very clever person, so I don't think that is insignificant. Because not only did his family rise to power, I mean, his father had Lord Hoster Tully fostering his child. That's a big deal. So not only did his family rise to power, but Littlefinger himself had a distinct rise to power. Regarding his being a master of coin, when he started out, Lysa had her husband give him a job as like a customs official, and he increased income tenfolds as a customs official. And then when he became a royal collector, he increased the incomes by like 3 times as a royal collector, which that's significant. And let me tell you why I think that's significant. It's not that he's clever enough to make that coin. It's that if he is a faceless man, he could be having the Bank of Bravos padding those books. So it might not be that he did such a good job that he was increasing the revenue or income by that much. It could just be they're like, hey, we're going to give you this so that you can do your job better. If we show them that you've increased this income times 10, they're going to promote you. And they did. That's just a logical thing to do. So I don't think he was squeezing water from stone. I think he was set up to succeed. Also, he keeps Ned in King's Landing. And this goes along with one of my other theories. And that theory is that Euron hired a faceless man to kill Ned Stark. I did a whole video on it, and the basic premise of that video is Euron was going to kill his brother to take the lordship and the kingship. He knew that Theon could potentially get in the way because he's an heir. He wasn't worried that the Iron Islanders would back Theon because he's been in the mainland so much, but he was worried that Ned would raise an army and move against him. And so instead of killing Theon, he killed Ned. And the reason why he didn't kill Theon is because Euron makes use of people, and I believe that Euron had a use for Theon, either the blood running through his veins or some other part of him, because we know that he has people in the hull of his ship in the worst conditions imaginable. And there's another theory regarding the Theon thing that I'm going to do probably another video with, because I just think that there is something regarding Euron and Theon that's worth exploring, and I think I know what it is, but I don't want to say it all willy-nilly here and not have the evidence that I've conjured up. Okay, so there's one last piece of evidence that everyone's going to be like, what are you talking about? And no, it is not from the show. But there is an association with the Boltons that I found. And I will say it is probably one of the most tinfoil things I've ever come up with, but it is important. And I don't think I pulled it out of nowhere. And I'm going to do a whole nother video after this one regarding the Littlefinger links with the Boltons, because I think I stumbled upon something that's pretty interesting and pretty big. Okay, so I thought I was done with the evidence, but it was looking a little light, and so I found a slide I had missed, and I had also found a bullet that I forgot to go over, and I added it to this. So let's go over the rest of the evidence. Some of it is significant. Okay, so the first is that Littlefinger might be Robin's father. I don't think his small size, and seeing as how the Arryns are pretty big, I don't think that's far-fetched at all. And thanks to Preston Jacobs, I now know that Robin is probably magically gifted. I actually don't pick up on things very easily, and when I'd read A Game of Thrones probably twice before I listened to him, and I never once thought oh, Robin Arryn is magical. No, I just thought he was having seizures because his father was super old when he was, created. So no, Robin probably has superpowers, and I had no idea. So I believe Littlefinger has powers of some sort, and I also believe that Robin has powers of some sort. Also, he had Garland Tyrell mimic Renly, which is a very Faceless Man thing to do. He provided the poison for Sansa's hairnut, which is a very Faceless Man thing to do. So these things, I'm so excited about this next theory. So he takes over Harrenhal from the Boltons, and he also, his own keep on the littlest finger is called, its nickname is the Drear Fort, kind of like the Dread Fort. And I know you're probably why does she keep on bringing up the Boltons? I swear I have a theory that's so freaking juicy, and I am itching to get it out, but I have to get through this first. And it sucks. I'm not going to tell you why it sucks, but we're going to move on right now. So another thing is that Littlefinger is teaching Sansa Faceless Man things, all the Faceless Man tricks. She's teaching them because they practice mummery. They practice changing their identities, discarding their identities. That is what Sansa's doing. That is exactly what she's doing. And also, he changes titles all the time, like Master of Coin, Master of Keys, Master of Locks or something. He had all of these, probably 20 different titles, and he still has more titles coming to him, like Lord of the Vale or something, might be Lord of Harrenhal, King of the Triad. All these titles are coming to him, and as you know, the Faceless Men discard their identities and take on new ones. So that is a mimicry right there. And he is also having Sansa do the same. Sansa is beginning to discard identities and titles and take on new ones. So there's that. Okay, so I've made it through the last of my evidence. 3 sections from now, I'm gonna be wait, you guys, I found another piece of evidence, and I'm gonna put it on the screen. But as of right now, I think I've done a pretty good job of presenting my point. Now, next, we're gonna go through what I believe happened. I figured it out. As I was making this video, I figured it out. I figured out the last puzzle piece that needed to be put into place before I fully formed this theory that I think is now way more accurate than I had thought when I first started researching this. And I also have PJ to thank for that puzzle piece. He did not have the theory. No one's had this theory that I know of, but it was a line that PJ said that steered me in the right direction. So what I figured out isn't just what is going on with Peter Baelish. I figured out what is going on with all of House Baelish. I used to think that there was a power in Planetos called luck, basically, similar to Domino in X-Men. And I thought, like, anyone associated with being clever, like Lan the Clever Tyrion, I thought that they might have the power of luck. And I had assumed that House Baelish's power was luck because magical things happen in Planetos. But no, I had that very wrong, and let me tell you why. Just a little bit of information regarding the House Baelish. The great-grandfather originated as a sellsword from Braavos and eventually came over to Westeros under the employ of House Corbray, and they climbed to the rank of Lord, which is pretty significant, even if they are the smallest Lord of all of Westeros, and they just might be. They have maybe a dozen families on their little finger place that they're Lord of. And what is crazy, it is crazy from someone to go from a sellsword to a lordship. That's crazy. But they didn't stop the climb there. The power of luck just kept with their family. And I had always assumed it was like a magical luck thing, but I figured it out. Okay, so we're gonna cut to later on with Peter's father. Somehow, suddenly, Hoster Tully, a High Lord, offered to foster Peter Baelish as a small child, and that is wild. High Lords foster other High Lords' children. Jon Arryn fostered Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark, and Hoster Tully is going around like fostering the smallest a Lord's child. That is insane. And once again, I'm like, oh, it's that power of luck. No, it's not the power of luck. Do you want to know what it is? And thank you, PJ, for this, because he helped me figure it out. Brosco in Braavos, who housed Arya Stark when she was going through her Faceless Man training, is a servant of the Many-Faced God, which means he is in direct connection with the Faceless Men. He is a servant to the Faceless Men. And I believe that House Baelish was a servant to the Faceless Men. It makes sense that Faceless Men would have servants everywhere, all around the world, and they would help these people get into advantageous positions so that they could do their job better. So my thought is that as a sellsword, he came over from Braavos, and everything that happened with his family was with the guidance and the assistance of the Faceless Men. So, and keep in mind, these servants are not Faceless Men. I am not saying that the whole line is Faceless Men. That is not it at all. I'm saying that they are servants. So my belief with Littlefinger's father is Hoster Tully was probably in a position where his life was in danger. And at just the right time, Littlefinger's father comes in and saves Hoster Tully, and that is how the fosterling situation came about. And if you think about it, there's not many other ways it could have come about. Hoster Tully should have been fostering Jaime Lannister or some other high noble. To waste a fostership on the smallest lord is ridiculous unless you owe them something, or there could be a blackmail situation going on. But even that falls under the Faceless Men assisting them, because Faceless Men have all kinds of information. And so my theory is that House Baelish was servants to the Faceless Men. And now I'm going to go into, in just a moment, I'm going to go into the history of Peter. When we think about Littlefinger's youth, along with Catelyn's and Lysa's and Edmure's, we have to remember that we are looking through the eyes of children. We are making sense of the events through Lysa and Cat, mostly. They are children. They are not adults reflecting on what could have happened or the motivations behind things. They are taking things at face value. And we have to remember that they are High Lord's children. Like, Catelyn is very pretty, and she assumes that when men like her, it's because of, her good standing with her family name, and also because she's beautiful. So when Peter develops a crush on her, that is what she is thinking. Peter loves me because I'm beautiful and I'm a High Lord's daughter. And that makes perfect logical sense to a child and also to an adult, I might add. But that is not it at all. And here's the reason why. Peter Baelish climbs the ranks. He has gone from low lord son to Lord of Harrenhal. He has climbed ranks throughout his entire life. It is very, very impressive. And I believe that he was not content being a servant to the Faceless Men. I think he wanted to be an actual Faceless Man, is what I think. And I think that in order to become a Faceless Man, if you are a servant to the many-faced God, you don't just get that privilege. They're not just yeah, we're going to let you be a Faceless Man. You have to prove yourself in some way. And what better way than to get a High Lord's daughter to fall in love with you and possibly marry you? So that is what I think Peter was thinking during his youth. Catelyn was seeing this kid that was love-struck, and Peter Baelish was, I really need this girl to fall in love with me so that I can prove myself to the Faceless Men. And let me give you one small example of how even the Faceless Men may have helped him orchestrate some events. So we see at some point Lysa and Catelyn get lost in the fog at Seagram Point or something. I can't remember the exact place, but there are two little girls that are lost. And somehow Peter Baelish is the one that finds them and rescues them. And that is just kind of like how I believe Hoster Tully was saved by Peter's father. It's just a little too coincidental to me. So much luck involved. And I actually think that at that time, the Faceless Men were he's trying, they were helping Peter as much as possible, not to become a Faceless Man, but to help get him in a better standing so that they could get more information, more access, so that if they ever did have to murder someone in the Tully household, maybe Peter can leave a door open that only very few specific people could leave open. So the Faceless Men were helping him to better Peter as a servant to the many-faced God. Peter, on the other hand, wanted to become a Faceless Man and was doing everything he could to impress the Faceless Men. So that is the very baseline for my belief on what Peter was doing and why I believe that Peter is a Faceless Man, and I'm going to go into that in just a moment. Okay, so now I'm going to get to the point where Catelyn Tully is betrothed to Brandon Stark, which is probably pretty devastating to Littlefinger. Up until this point, he had been trying to get Catelyn to love him back, and that was because he wanted to join the ranks of the Faceless Men. It could also be because the Faceless Men told him, hey, in order to be a Faceless Man, you have to do XYZ. And I am going to stand behind him wanting to be a Faceless Man because it's how his rank progresses in the story. He goes from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. So I sincerely think he would want to climb the ladder of the Faceless Men. So Catelyn and Brandon are betrothed, and this is probably devastating for him. He's probably I'm never going to be able to become a Faceless Man if I can't get her love. And so he does something stupid. He challenges Brandon Stark to a duel under the assumption that the Faceless Men will step in and save him. And why do I think that he thought that they would save him? Because they have helped him his whole life. They have helped his whole family his whole life. For example, when Catelyn and Lysa went missing in the fog in that place that they hadn't been before, it was Peter Baelish that found him, and he was just a small boy. I have a strong feeling that he had help from the Faceless Men in doing that. And I think that if you have listened to this video up until this point, you would probably agree with me. And so he challenged Brandon Stark, thinking that the Faceless Men would intervene if he was in trouble, and they did not. They did not intervene at all. Or maybe they did at the end, who knows. But I'm going to read this quote from Catelyn. Brandon finally ended it with a brutal backhand cut that bit through Peter's rings and leathers into the soft flesh below the ribs, so deep that Catelyn was certain that the wound was mortal. And that was from a Game of Thrones, Catelyn 7. So this is where my theory gets wishy-washy, because it could go in many different directions, and I don't know which lane to choose. So let's talk about what I think is pretty likely that happened. I think that Peter became a Faceless Man after that. It could have happened in multiple ways, but I think a Faceless Man visited him and is you've earned your Faceless Man title because of XYZ reasons, because doing what he did and surviving it is very significant. It is very significant, so maybe the Faceless Men saw value in that. There's another thing that could have happened. Another thing that could have happened is that he died and a faceless man stole his identity. You might be like, well, that's crazy, but there's a very specific line somewhere in A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm not going to say it verbatim, but it's something like, rarely is a child a faceless man. And I think that that is a line that should tell everyone, hey, look for a child that might have been a faceless man. And a lot of people think Miss Sandy was a faceless man. That's entirely possible. It's not my theory, but it's entirely possible. I actually think it was someone probably a little bit younger than Peter, because Peter was always small. And so they would have picked someone younger that could grow as Peter would grow. So I think there was a child faceless, I think potentially there is a child faceless man that swapped skin with him. And I know that there's like, well, what about Lysa? And what about this? And what about that? Like, it's not a bad theory, because say Lysa and everybody leaves him alone and the faceless man sneaks in. He completely takes, like, Littlefinger's at the edge of death. He completely takes the skin, takes it, lays back down. Somehow the rest of the body's disposed of. So that is something that could have happened. Another thing that could have happened is that Littlefinger decided to steal the magic. So Littlefinger somehow has been around the Faceless Men his whole life. And I think that person that they spoke about in the cave, where he was taken to the cave and they gave him the fortune and he got a little felt up, I actually think he was a Faceless Man. And I think that person has been in his life, throughout his entire life. And I think that Peter is clever, even though he's gotten help, and he just watched the guy do his Faceless Men things again and again, and he learned how to do that himself. So I do think that it is entirely possible that he stole the Faceless Man magic and he is operating on his own. I don't think that's necessarily true, because he went on to become master of coin, and it made his income grow exponentially, and I just think that was an infusion from the Iron Bank to let him grow in rank. But also, if he were to have stolen the magic, he could have found other Faceless Men methods to go and do that exact same thing without the Iron Bank's help. So that is another possibility. And now I'm going to talk about something that is concerning me in regards to my theory, and that is the freaking letter that Catelyn had to go and freaking burn. Like, it is killing me that I don't know what's in that letter. And there are freaking multiple letters, I think, that we don't know what was in those letters in A Song of Ice and Fire, and that just makes me mad. A part of me thinks also, and this is going to go to another theory. This is like the fourth branch of this theory, and that is that Littlefinger decided he was going to commit suicide, and he ended up going to the Black and White to commit suicide, and they stole his husk there. So that is like the last of many different theories I have of what happened after Brandon Stark wounded him. So it could be that this Faceless Man just stole his husk, or stole his body and took his husk. It could be that he was granted the privilege of being a Faceless Man because of all that he endured and all that he knew and how good he was, and his magical blood, because I do think he has magical blood. And that could be it. Or it could just be that he wrote a suicide letter to Kat that she burnt, and he went over to Bravos and drank the little thing and laid down, and they stole his husk. So that is another thing that could have happened. So thank you for bearing with me on all of those thoughts, because there were many. There are other mysteries that I'm going to get into, because while everything that I said makes a whole lot of sense, it is worth exploring the things that don't necessarily fit into the theories. So I'm going to come back and give you all the reasons why I might be wrong, or all the things left a mystery still. One more thing, because there's always one more thing before we get to the mysteries. I want to add that after Littlefinger had that duel, he was like a different person. He woke up a new man. And some people might be like, well, he lost the love of his life. Of course, he was going through some shit. That is very possible. But I also think it's possible that somebody else had taken his husk and he was really a new person. Or potentially he decided to discard his false face. The love of Catelyn was fake. His friendship with the Tullys was fake. Everything about him was fake. It was a mummer's role he was playing, and when he no longer had to play that role, he was going to become a new person. So that is something I wanted to add. So now I want to go over a few things I just couldn't figure out, but I'm sure that they are significant in some way, and I was hoping you guys could help me. The first is that there is a line. I'm not going to say the exact line because it really doesn't matter, but it's something about Catelyn and Lysa making Peter eat mud. And I actually came up with my own theory on that. I thought it was actually like there was an extinct house mud, and I thought that it was a very powerful family, and it was possible that Peter Baelish had been a descendant of house mud. And it just over the years, that just seems in my head to have fallen apart, and I no longer believe that. The other instances I remember of mud in Game of Thrones are like something to do with the Kragan men breathing mud. And I only know that because I keyword searched mud, and like that was a significant thing. And I just kind of stopped looking because I just don't see, like, maybe maybe his mom was a Kragan man. I don't know, but like it just didn't, like, nothing made sense regarding the forcing him to eat mud. But I am positive that there is a significance to it, and maybe it's supposed to mimic like the weirwood paste, like people force feeding the weirwood paste, like. And I'm just going to tell you how like aloof I am. I wouldn't have realized weirwood paste was people if it wasn't for, I think it was Preston Jacobs. Like, I would have had no clue. Like, I'm just listening to the story, I'm reading the story, I'm like, okay, like he's eating this weirwood paste, and then like my mind gets blown. First, like, Sweet Robin has freaking powers, and then like, oh, by the way, they're eating humans, and Jojen is a paste now. I'm like so when I'm on here making these videos, do not think for one moment that I believe I am smarter than any of you. I'm not. I just noticed a few things, like things that everyone else picked up on, I completely missed. So I do think there is something to him eating the mud, and maybe it was to mimic the weirwood paste. Also, his mother's name is Elaine. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I don't think it's necessarily false either. I just think that it means something. I just don't know what. He has an association with stone. Peter means stone. The Titan is stone. The lands, stony lands. I don't know why that matters. I think there's so much going on with the Game of Thrones and stone. Like, sometimes it's a bastard's last name. Sometimes it's just a tool to build. I don't know what the heck the stone is. And there's like, it's in prophecy everywhere. Like, oh, stone this, stone that. It's like, there's just too much stone going on to really know what it means. Obviously, the Hermit's cave, like, it's very weird to me that was even mentioned or included. It's kind of like with Cersei and Maggie the Frog. Like, that made a lot of sense, but like for Littlefinger to talk about how he was groped, and then the guy said he was going to be great. Like, I actually kind of feel like he might have been referring to a faceless man. Like, I just think he was a faceless man, and that was the connection, but it's a mystery. Obviously, the letter, what did the letter say? I think it was a suicide letter. It could be so many other things. I really don't know. It could just be like, hey, I want you to know that everything's cool between us, because he could have gone and decided to become his own faceless man, as I said. That's possible. Also, and I love this one because it's the dreams of Winterfell. I think I might have that figured out. I think I might. And it's more interesting the more I think about it, because it has to do with a theory that I came up with while making this video. I literally came up with it today, and it's like needling me. I'm going to have to do this theory probably tomorrow because I am so obsessed with it and I love it so much. And I'm just going to warn you, it's probably the least likely theory I've had to be like true. Like, every other theory I've come up with, it's been pretty solid, I think. Like, if you look at my evidence, it's been pretty solid. Even the one where it was regarding Euron hiring Jaqen. Like, if you go to one of my theories, I had like why Jaqen was in the black cells. There is no real text evidence. It went on feels and vibes and evidence and like logic. And logic to me is evidence. And so there's no like breadcrumbs there. It's all logic. And I think that is more solid than the one I'm going to give you tomorrow, which is going to be amazing. I'm so excited about it. But I think the dreams of Winterfell are significant. Why the hell would Peter be dreaming of Winterfell? Like, I'm going to pretend like my other theory doesn't exist, and I'm going to talk about these dreams. He's not dreaming of Catelyn. He says he's dreaming of Winterfell. And for a long time, I wondered, like, is he like was there Starks in his blood? Like, because there was a Stark that married into House Aaron, but I don't know if they had any heirs. I don't believe they did. Or if they did, they weren't talked about. So I'm like, and like Starks could have, like, I just didn't know if that dreaming of Winterfell meant that he was part Stark or part of something bigger. I have no clue, and I still don't. But I think it has something to do with my the video that I'm going to produce tomorrow. So there's that. Those are the mysteries of Littlefinger that I cannot figure out. Now we're just going to have a little bit more before the ending of this video. So now we have to go back to the question, was Littlefinger a faceless man? And I think it is a very complicated answer because while I believe that he has faceless man powers, I do not necessarily think that he himself is in the faceless man religion anymore. I think that what perhaps happened was his family were servants to the many-faced god, as Brasco's family was. And it was the family because Brasco had a daughter who also seemed to be helping the faceless men out. So it is a generational thing that happened. So I think the House Baelish was helping the faceless men as servants to the many-faced gods, and in turn the faceless men helped them rise to power not only within their family lines but also with Littlefinger in his line. They helped them rise tremendously. And so yes, he is a faceless man, but I think it's possible that he is a bastardized faceless man and that he is working with his own agenda. And that is something that should be explored more, and how I would do that. I'm not going to add more to this video because it's very, very long. But how I would explore that is I would look at everything he's done in the present day and say, like, oh, this is very faceless man focused, or no, this is definitely self-motivated. And I think that we could actually find a lot more self-motivated things. So I believe he is a bastardized faceless man. I think he stole the faceless man powers because when they would help him out, he would see what they were doing. He's a very astute little boy, and I think that he just stole the magic and became his own faceless man. So that is my thoughts on Littlefinger, and I really hope that you like the video that I put together, and I really hope that if you do not think what I'm saying is true, I really want you to like argue with me in the comments, needle me, do your own little research and come at me with all caps. I am very happy with opposition. I'm very, very happy with it. I'm not someone that gets offended when there are people that don't agree with me. I don't love contrarian people for the sake of being contrarian, but like, give me a worthy foe. I will fight it. I will fight like Peter Baelish fought Brandon Stark. So give me a worthy foe. So tell me what you think about my theory. And also, I don't like asking people to like do anything in particular with my channel, like or subscribe or anything. I'm not going to ask you to do that. But please, if you know a content creator that might really like my work, and they might want to carry the torch, because I don't see myself making videos forever, but I'm really dying to get my ideas out there, because as you can tell from all my videos, they're original. I'm not taking my theories from anyone. So if you know of someone that might want to carry my torch for me and be like, yes, I will totally make her videos for her because she hates being in front of the camera because of her speech impediment, and she hates editing videos, and she is just going to pull her hair out. So like, go and put them in my direction. I would love to talk about my theories with people, and I'm very happy if somebody wants to go and do my theories into videos. I'm very pleased. I'm not like gatekeeping my theories. So thank you, and I promise you I'll be back tomorrow or maybe the next day with another banger.